All right, here we are. Welcome back, guys. Sorry about that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh well. My apologies, folks. Like I said, there's a filter here that YouTube offers us as creators to filter everything that we run through it. It's called the Creative Commons filter, and that's what they allow. And I ran it through as I do most everything. It said it was okay, and it still hit it. So, like I said, sometimes they change these things. So, let me see here. Let me run the other one here. Like I said, I usually have backups, and I ran them both through, but you just never know sometimes. So my apologies, everyone. My apologies. Just got to get back in here. Just a minute. So sorry for all the delays and this mess. Ugh, I don't get it. Hang on. Let's see what we got here. All right, bear with me once. All right. Good God, what a mess, you guys. I'm so sorry about that. I feel so bad. There's only 12 people here now. Come on in, guys. Please hit the like button again if you will, if you could. Please and thank you. Okay, so there's that. It's ready to go. Just give me one moment to set the other side of this up. I appreciate you guys' patience on this. I feel so stupid right now. 1 minute. Okay, so that one needs to be shut down. That's the problem. Here we go. That other one was still running like it was live, which there must not have been enough time in between. That's where I got stuck at. Sorry. All right. Here we go. Okay, I think we're good. And this one may not be this. This isn't going to be this done the same way, but we'll still be able to do it. So come on in, guys. I guess I'll wait a few seconds to get everybody else back in here. Again, thank you guys for your patience and understanding. And welcome back. All right, welcome back, Trish, Alicia, Sassy, SRB, Wisdom, Paula, CZ, all of you guys, welcome back. Just give me a, I'm going to give it just a minute. And hopefully, welcome back, Meanie. Again, my apologies, everybody. Welcome back, Eddie. Thank you guys for coming back. I really do appreciate that. And again, my deepest apologies. Like I said, I run these things through this filter. It's called the Creative Commons filter for YouTube. It says they're okay. I do everything the way I'm supposed to, but sometimes they just don't. They don't work because of that, and then we have to watch. But there it is. And I really do apologize for all this mess, you guys. For you guys to go through all this and still come back to this means a lot to me. Really does. So thank you. Okay, we're almost all here. I don't want to start it with everybody not being back yet. Sometimes it takes a minute for everybody to see it. Yes, I'm glad you guys came back. Really am. YouTube really gets me angry sometimes. It is very weird. Hey, Demon, good to see you. Yes, they're very strange. I agree with that. And it's weird. They have these rules for us to follow as creators, and we follow them, and they still don't work right. Make up your mind what you want to do with it or don't want to do with it. And I give credit like I'm supposed to, even, and like I said, I run them through the filter and everything. So I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird. And welcome back, everybody. Again, thank you. Let me see here. Let me see here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. We got 16 peeps. You're probably the most mindful and courteous person. I don't think you're the. Oh, well, thank you, Meanie. I appreciate that very much. I try to be as understanding and polite as I possibly can and welcoming, but things happen, and I understand. I'm not mad. I feel bad that you guys have to go through this to get to the point to watch the damn show. So I feel that's what bugs me. All right, I'll get this rolling and people can jump in. If we got to back up or I have to re-explain something, that's my fault. I'll do it. No worries at all. Let me know if you guys hear it okay, please.
In the annals of American crime, few stories are as chilling as the Cleveland torso murders. This series of gruesome killings, which took place in the 1930s, left an indelible mark on the city of Cleveland. The victims, often dismembered and decapitated, were found scattered across the area known as Kingsbury Run, a place that would forever be associated with fear and mystery. A shadowy figure lurking in the darkness became the embodiment of terror. This figure, whose identity remains unknown to this day, was responsible for a string of brutal murders that baffled authorities and terrified the public. The killer's ability to evade capture only added to the sense of dread that permeated the city. A name whispered in hushed tones: the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. This moniker struck fear into the hearts of Cleveland's residents as they wondered who among them could be capable of such heinous acts. The Mad Butcher's reign of terror was not just a series of crimes, it was a psychological assault on the community. His reign of terror, etched in the heart of Cleveland, left a legacy of fear and uncertainty. The city, already struggling with the economic hardships of the Great Depression, now had to contend with a killer who seemed to strike at will. The atmosphere was thick with suspicion and paranoia as neighbors eyed each other warily, wondering if the killer could be someone they knew. This is the story of a city gripped by fear, where the line between life and death was severed by an unseen hand. The Cleveland torso murders were not just a series of isolated incidents. They were a relentless assault on the very fabric of the community. Each new discovery of a body part sent shockwaves through the city, deepening the sense of helplessness and despair. Join us, if you dare, as we delve into the dark depths of this unsolved mystery. The investigation into the Cleveland torso murders was one of the most extensive and challenging in the history of American law enforcement. Detectives and forensic experts worked tirelessly, sifting through scant evidence and following elusive leads. But the killer always seemed to be one step ahead. A tale of gruesome discoveries, elusive clues, and a killer who vanished into the shadows. The Cleveland torso murders remain one of the most perplexing and haunting cases in the annals of true crime. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the identity of the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run remains a mystery, and the
Is that better, Eddie? Sorry. How's that? Sorry about that. Welcome back, Mark Schumann, and anybody else that jumped in. Thank you guys for rejoining. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
The case continues to captivate and horrify those who dare to explore its dark depths. Prepare yourself, for the horrors of Kingsbury Run are not for the faint of heart. As we journey through the chilling details of this case, remember that the true horror lies not just in the acts themselves, but in the fact that the killer was never brought to justice. The enigma of Kingsbury Run endures, a dark chapter in the history of American crime that continues to haunt the city of Cleveland to this day. The year was 1935, a time when the world was grappling with the aftershocks of the Great Depression. Cities across America were struggling, but none more so than Cleveland, Ohio. America, reeling from the Great Depression, saw its cities become shadows of their former selves. Unemployment was rampant, and hope was a scarce commodity. Cleveland, Ohio, a city struggling to find its footing amidst the economic turmoil, was no exception. The once thriving industrial hub was now a place of despair and uncertainty. But amidst the economic hardship, a different kind of darkness was descending upon the city, a darkness that was far more sinister and terrifying than the economic woes that plagued its residents. Kingsbury Run, a desolate stretch of land on the outskirts of Cleveland, became an unwilling witness to a series of horrific crimes. This area, already known for its poverty and desolation, would soon be etched into the annals of history for far more gruesome reasons. Bodies, or rather what remained of them, began to surface. Dismembered, mutilated, unidentifiable. The brutality of the crimes was unlike anything the city had ever seen. The victims were often found in such a state that identifying them was nearly impossible. The victims, seemingly chosen at random, added to the terror. Men, women, young, old, no one was safe. The randomness of the killings made the fear all the more palpable. The city held its breath, fear seeping into its very core. Every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat, every stranger a possible suspect. The once bustling streets were now filled with an eerie silence, broken only by whispers of dread.
Welcome, Noel, and thank you so much for that. God bless. We appreciate that very much. So very generous. Thank you. Thank you. I have the volume turned all the way up at this point, you guys. Hopefully that's good. And again, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys coming back.
Red. Who was this mad butcher? The question haunted the minds of Cleveland's residents and law enforcement alike. Theories abounded, but concrete answers were elusive. What drove him to commit such unspeakable acts? Was it a twisted sense of justice, a deep-seated hatred, or something far more incomprehensible? The motives behind the killings were as mysterious as the identity of the killer himself. The answers, lost to time, remain elusive to this day. The mad butcher of Kingsbury Run left behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. His identity and motives are shrouded in mystery, a dark chapter in the history of Cleveland that continues to intrigue and terrify. Cleveland, 1935. A city built on industry, steel mills roared, factories churned, the Cuyahoga River a ribbon of fire. But beneath the veneer of progress, a darkness festered. The Great Depression had crippled the nation. Unemployment was rampant. Poverty cast a long shadow. Whispers of discontent echoed in the streets. In the forgotten corners of the city, a different kind of desperation took hold. Kingsbury Run, a desolate wasteland, became a refuge for the lost and forgotten. It was here, in this no man's land, that the nightmare began. Word spread quickly through the shanty towns. A gruesome discovery on the lakefront, a body mutilated beyond recognition. The details, whispered from ear to ear, were too horrific to believe. The police arrived, their faces hardened by years of witnessing the city's underbelly, but even they were shocked by the brutality of the crime. The victim, a man, had been dismembered, his head, arms, and legs severed. The killer had left no trace, no witnesses, no clues, only a chilling silence that hung heavy in the air. Days turned into weeks. The memory of the murdered man lingered like a ghost over Kingsbury Run. Then it happened again. Another body, this time a woman. Her torso washed ashore on the lakefront, her limbs missing. The city held its breath. Fear, like a virus, began to spread. The newspapers dubbed her the Lady of the Lake, her identity a mystery, her killer a phantom. In the sterile confines of the coroner's office, Dr. Arthur Pierce examined the remains. His brow furrowed, his eyes, hardened by years of dealing with death, betrayed a flicker of unease. The killer was meticulous, almost surgical in his precision. The dismemberment, performed with a skill that sent shivers down Pierce's spine. The victims, he noted, had been drained of their blood, their bodies carefully
Good point,
purged,
me.
as if the killer were sending a message. But what was it? Months passed, the killings continued. Kingsbury Run, once a haven for the desperate, became known as the killing fields, each discovery more gruesome than the last. Men and women, their bodies discarded like broken dolls. The city lived in fear, parents kept their children close. Whispers of the mad butcher filled the air, his motives a chilling enigma. Was he driven by madness, by a lust for blood, or something even
Absolutely,
darker?
Mark.
September 1936. A discovery that sent shockwaves through the investigation. Two headless bodies found near East 55th Street. One a male, the other too badly decomposed to determine gender. But on the male victim's chest, a clue, a tattoo. Could this be the key to unlocking the mystery? The press dubbed him the Tattooed Man. Hope, however faint, flickered. Could this be the break they needed? The investigation intensified. Elliot Ness, Cleveland's safety director, took charge. His reputation as a crime fighter preceded him, but the mad butcher proved to be a different breed of criminal. Leads ran cold, witnesses unreliable. The killer seemed to vanish into thin air. Fear gnawed at the city's soul. Was the mad butcher a figment of their collective nightmare, or a flesh and blood monster hiding in plain sight? Dr. Pierce, the coroner, toiled tirelessly. He experimented with new techniques, searching for any scrap of evidence that might lead them to the killer. He examined the victims' remains, looking for traces of poison, clues to their identities, anything that might break the case wide open. But the Mad Butcher left few clues behind. His victims, often transients and drifters, were difficult to identify. The mystery deepened. Section 5. The Hunt for the Butcher. Ness and his men
I agree.
conducted numerous raids. They questioned suspects, followed every lead, no matter how tenuous or small, but the Mad Butcher remained elusive. The pressure mounted. The public demanded answers. The city held its breath, waiting. Who was the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, and would he ever be brought to justice? Elliot Ness, the name echoed through the streets. The untouchable, the man who brought down Al Capone, now facing his greatest challenge yet, Kingsbury Run, a festering
Yeah,
wound
I thought
within the
that was
city.
funny too,
The
Eddie.
Mad Butcher, a taunting shadow. Ness vowed to bring him down. He would use every resource, every ounce of his being. The investigation intensified. Day and night, Kingsbury Run was combed. Every clue, every whisper meticulously followed. Ness, a relentless force, driving his men forward, his reputation, his city at stake. The Mad Butcher, a spectre haunting his every move. But Ness refused to back down. He would not let this evil stand. Despite Ness's efforts, the murders continued, each victim a fresh wave of terror. The pressure mounted, the public desperate for answers. Newspapers questioned Ness's competence, whispers of incompetence and corruption followed him. The Mad Butcher, a constant reminder of his failures. The trail had gone cold, leads evaporated into dead ends. Frustration gnawed at Ness. His resolve, though tested, did not break. He knew the killer was out there, somewhere hiding in plain sight, and Ness would not rest until he was found. Section 3, Shadows of Doubt. As the body count rose, whispers turned to accusations. The Mad Butcher, a phantom, a boogeyman. But who was he really? Theories abounded, each more outlandish than the last. Some whispered of a vengeful spirit, others of a secret society performing gruesome rituals. The lack of answers fueled speculation. The city, gripped by paranoia, fear became a constant companion. Neighbors, once friendly, now eyed each other with suspicion. Every stranger, a potential killer. The city, once vibrant, now cloaked in fear. Section 4, The Butcher's Shadow. Despite the fear, life in Cleveland went on, but the shadow of the Mad Butcher loomed. His presence, a constant reminder of the city's vulnerability, the unsolved murders, an open wound. People tried to forget, to find solace in the mundane, but the fear lingered. In every dark alley, every deserted street corner, the Mad Butcher had changed the city, stolen its innocence, left an indelible mark on its psyche, a chilling reminder that evil can lurk even in the brightest of places. Section 5, The Unanswered Question. Years passed. The killings stopped as abruptly as they began. The Mad Butcher vanished, leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. Who was he? What drove him to commit such unspeakable acts? Was he ever brought to justice? The answers lost to time. The case remains open, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human heart. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, a haunting enigma, his reign of terror, a dark chapter in Cleveland's history. The precision of the dismemberments, the clean, almost surgical cuts, whispers of a doctor gone rogue, a monster hiding in plain sight. Rumors swirled around a local clinic, a doctor rumored to perform illegal abortions, his patients often women from the city's underbelly, women who disappeared never to be seen again. The doctor questioned but never charged, his alibi watertight, yet the suspicion lingered. A seed of doubt planted in the public's mind. Could the Mad Butcher be someone sworn to heal? A twisted mind perverting medical knowledge. The thought sent shivers down the spines of Cleveland citizens. The murders, too organized for a lone killer, too widespread, too bold. Whispers of a conspiracy took root, a powerful group operating in the shadows, the targets not random, each victim somehow connected, a web of secrets, hidden agendas and corruption. The police, perhaps even Ness himself, implicated. The theory gained traction, fueled by distrust of authority, by the fear of the unknown, the truth buried deep, protected by those with something to hide. Evidence destroyed, witnesses silenced. The Mad Butcher, a mere pawn in a larger game, a chilling thought that justice may never be served. The murders stopped. The Mad Butcher vanished. But Kingsbury Run held on to its secrets. The echoes of violence lingering, those who dared venture into the area at night spoke of strange noises, of cold spots, the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes, ghosts of the victims seeking peace. Or perhaps the Mad Butcher himself, still lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. The thought sent chills down the spines of even the bravest. Kingsbury Run, a place of fear, a grim reminder of the darkness that man is capable of, and the secrets that lie hidden in the shadows. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, a mystery for the ages, his identity, his motives lost to time. An unseen hand forever marking the city's soul. Clues remain, whispers in the wind, tantalizing hints of a truth just out of reach. But the puzzle remains unsolved. Was it the work of a skilled surgeon, a conspiracy of powerful men, or something even more sinister? The questions linger, unanswered. The Mad Butcher, a chilling reminder that some mysteries may never be solved, that evil can touch even the most ordinary of places, and that some wounds never truly heal. The Mad Butcher's reign of terror ended, but the echoes of his gruesome acts still reverberate through the streets of Cleveland. The scars he inflicted on Cleveland ran deep, leaving an indelible mark on the city's collective psyche. The city, forever marked by the unsolved murders, struggled to find peace. Each piece of evidence, each unsolved clue, a haunting reminder of the terror that once gripped the community. Kingsbury Run, a chilling landmark of fear, became synonymous with the Mad Butcher's heinous acts. The very name sends shivers down the spines of those who remember. Life went on as it always does, but beneath the surface the city was forever changed. The normalcy was a facade, masking the lingering fear and unresolved pain. The memory of the Torso murders lingered, etched into the hearts and minds of the residents. It was a dark chapter in the city's history that refused to be forgotten. A ghost story whispered from generation to generation, the tale of the Mad Butcher became a cautionary legend, a reminder of the evil that once walked among them, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, unseen and undetected, waiting to strike fear into the hearts of the unsuspecting. Those who lived through those dark days carried the weight of the unsolved crimes, their faces etched with the pain and sorrow of a time when safety was a distant memory. The fear, the uncertainty etched into their memories, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of danger. A wound that never fully healed, a scar that served as a testament to the horrors endured and the resilience of those who survived. The Mad Butcher may have vanished into the shadows, but his legacy of fear and violence remained, casting a long dark shadow over the city. His presence continued to haunt the city, a ghostly figure in the fog, a spectre that refused to be forgotten, a chilling reminder that some wounds run deeper than time, that some scars never truly fade, and that the past can cast a long shadow over the present and future. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, a name whispered in hushed tones, a symbol of fear of the unknown, his true identity a mystery for the ages. Was he a brilliant surgeon gone mad, a shadowy figure protected by a powerful conspiracy, or simply a monster lurking in the darkest corners of the human psyche? The answer lost to time, perhaps hidden in plain sight or buried deep within the annals of Cleveland's past. The Mad Butcher may never be unmasked, but his story serves as a chilling reminder that some mysteries are never solved and that some shadows never truly fade.
All right. So there's a kind of a quickie on the story. Um, that way. And again, my apologies for the interruptions and all the delays and stuff, guys. That's ridiculous. But I have they came out here with, let me pull up my downloads real quick. Where did it go? Hang on. Thank you guys for bearing with me with all this craziness. All right. So they did if I can find it again. One moment. Too many downloads. I need to get rid of some of this stuff. Oh, yes. So they started to um, exhume the unidentified victims, and do, I do believe that they're going to be doing um, something with DNA. I'm sure they're going to explain it here, but it was quite interesting to see that they're doing the exhumation of these victims, the unidentified ones, in regards to this. So
News right now at 5 o'clock on a decades-old serial murder case. Investigators are now digging up the victims' remains. 19 Investigates broke the story last month after uncovering plans to exhume victims of Cleveland's infamous torso killer. Our Brian Duffy is here now with the very latest. Brian.
Tiffany, today these crews from the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office were in Memorial Park Cemetery in Highland Hills exhuming remains. More than a dozen people were murdered back in the 1930s, but only 2 were positively identified. Dr. Thomas Gilson, the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner, believes with new technology, there is an opportunity to officially ID some of these victims and possibly identify the torso killer.
Can we identify who these folks are? Maybe. And if identifying them, does that help us find out who their, killer was? I'd say the answer to that is maybe, because if we kind of, I think it's one of the most basic things of any death investigation. Who's the person in front of me?
And that has been the problem for over 90 years. Who are the victims of the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run? It's why the medical examiner's office is digging in a potter's field, exhuming the remains of people they believe to be victims. The ME is partnered with the DNA Doe Project. They are experts in investigative genetic genealogy and will use DNA to try and track down relatives of the victims. They are digging today. Will this be part of the solution, laying the groundwork to an ID of the victims?
Can we say for sure? No, we're just getting started. But, knowing who the victims are will probably be a good way to kickstart an investigation again, into who might have been responsible for this.
Now, most experts believe the torso killer is a man named Dr. Frank Sweeney. Why? You can hear those answers in What the Investigation Looked Like in the 30s by listening to my podcast, The Torso Killer. I spoke with experts on the case for this episode of our Dark Side of the Land series. Now, in its 5th season. You can listen to The Torso Killer and other episodes on our website or wherever you get your podcasts.
I thought that was pretty wild that they were doing that because, well, like I said, the hold on, there's another piece to this too. The IgG and the all the stuff that we've been seeing over the past few years becoming such a big thing. This is like he said, over 90 years. That's a big deal. If you can solve a 90-year-old case with DNA, that's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. So I see you guys are talking about ice cream over here, making some ice cream. That's awesome. It's getting to be that time of year. Good luck with it.
With breaking news tonight on a decades-old serial murder case here in Cleveland. It's been one of Northeast Ohio's biggest mysteries for nearly 90 years. Who was the torso killer, and who were his multiple unidentified victims? In an exclusive interview, investigator Sarah Goldenberg found we may be one step closer to finding out some of those answers.
We've learned a nonprofit is working with the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office to try to identify some of the victims of the torso killer using DNA and genealogy.
They're one of Northeast Ohio's most notorious unsolved crimes. Who was the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run? And more importantly, who were this vicious killer's victims? In the mid to late 1930s, horrifying discoveries across the city of Cleveland. Over 4 years, someone murdered and dismembered more than a dozen people in Cleveland, dumping them across the city's east side. Many times, only a torso was recovered.
At this time, this is in the middle of the Great Depression. There are a lot of transient, people moving around the country, high unemployment.
According to police, Edward Andersey and Florence Poliello were the only victims who could be positively identified through their fingerprints. Another woman, Rose Wallace, was tentatively ID'd from dental records. But for nearly 90 years, the identities of the torso killer's other victims have remained a mystery, buried here in unmarked graves in a potter's field.
So this is an article that Dr. Gerber wrote. They mentioned Elliot Ness.
Dr. Thomas Gilson is the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner. In an exclusive interview, he told 19 Investigates the DNA Doe Project reached out to them, and together they're trying to identify anywhere between 1 and 3 victims of the torso killer. First, they'll need to exhume their bodies and try to generate DNA profiles with Othram, a private lab. Then the DNA Doe Project will step in, trying to identify the victims with investigative genetic genealogy by finding a common ancestor.
In this case, what we're going to try to do is look forward in time.
Again, this guy. But yeah, agreed. They're definitely not here. The suspect is going to be gone, but at least it's tagged as solved. And some of the families that may have questions have some answers. You know what I mean? That is the important part. But we'll see. We'll see if it works. Yeah, Othram is big into this now, and they're coming full circle with all their stuff, guys. It's pretty wild.
So if I have a profile of somebody, can I find people who have ancestral DNA that's similar to this person, and then potentially find relatives of these folks and try to connect them? Very, very novel approach.
The big challenge will be what comes first, finding the victims' bodies and seeing what shape they're in.
The exhumation is going to be tricky, though, because these are people, again, who are living on the periphery of society. They're buried in a potter's field. We're dealing with records that, are 90 years old. And, I think as much as people would like to think this is a very systematic, orderly process, it isn't.
Will it finally be enough to identify some of these victims and even help solve this decades-old mystery?
Can we finally, get an answer on it? I think that's the exciting potential of it. But I think even if we came away knowing who some of these folks were, that would be, a win for me.
So once again, and then not Sorry, guys. Not to mention, you'd be able just to have an answer, in my opinion, like I said, would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's not going to be any real justice because there's no way to punish the person that committed the crime. Obviously, we know that. They're saying, hold on, where'd it go? I'm trying to find. Just imagining being around back then when this was going on was like, what? You know? Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. They're talking about making a movie out of this, by the way. There is, I have something here that here we go. Who they believe this was. Hold on. Like I said, I was able to get some news segments, but they're all newer relating to the older stuff with it. I think it would be interesting to see how that works out too. Agreed.
It is one of the darkest chapters in Cleveland history.
What would you like to know?
In the mid to late 1930s, our city was known to many as the most dangerous in America.
Town was gripped in fear.
And during that time, a serial killer stalked this city.
When the serial killers were out, they were all afraid.
A brutal killer who inspired dozens of books and blogs. Two haunting
I agree,
tales
Mimi.
that we will tell you about. The first, written nearly 2 decades ago by English professor Dr. James Badal.
I mean, there were so many misconceptions around the Torso murders that had been festering for so long.
In the wake of the butcher.
Somebody had to set the record straight historically.
The second, written recently by attorney Michael Jordan.
So I found this whole story captivating and said, this needs a book.
A fictionalized version titled The Company of Demons.
Look at the interest it still engenders in Cleveland now in 2018. And these happened so many years ago, but people find the entire topic fascinating.
Absolutely.
He always took the head off.
The Torso murderer claimed at least a dozen victims from 1934 to 1938.
Sometimes he dissected them more than that.
Most of the killings concentrated in an area called Kingsbury Run. These days, it's better known as the area near the flats.
He was non-discriminatory, killed black, white, women, men.
Interestingly, he tended to leave the men intact. But the women he cut up in smaller pieces. Don't know why.
The coroner at the time said that the murderer probably could do a better job than half of his staff in dismembering a corpse.
Out of the 12 official victims, only 2 were ever truly identified. But all of the victims had one thing in common.
People who would not be missed, people who had no identity.
In the pages of Cleveland's history, this was the city's first serial killer.
The duel, if you will, between the Torso killer and Elliot Ness was just a fascinating bit of history.
It even brought the famed cop Elliot Ness to Cleveland to take over as public safety director. Ness, best known for taking down gangster Al Capone. But the Torso killer wouldn't be as easy to catch.
The pressure to find someone, anyone, was so intense.
For years, the killer taunted Ness, sending letters and postcards.
He even admitted it to Elliot Ness in one of the postcards. Sort of.
This one, signed The American Sweeney. Some believe it's a reference to Sweeney Todd, a fictional serial killer in Britain.
So the fact that he would call himself the American Sweeney is the kind of joke he would love to play.
And the true nature of the torso killer's crimes, a mystery within a mystery.
The official police file disappeared. It's gone. No one can say exactly when or how it happened, but it's gone.
It's why so much of today's knowledge about it is reconstructed from documents and newspapers, from people's memories. Two authors,
When I heard that, when I actually read that part, that the police file for it had disappeared. I know it's been a long time, but it made me wonder when it disappeared and if it was because there was a police officer involved, maybe. You know what I mean? I had to wonder that. Because back then, records weren't watched over so heavily, I guess you could say. Oh, yeah. Heard that, too. They're still testing remains from Lake Mead, and it will just take time. Agreed. Oh, yeah. Sweeney Todd was a great movie. I loved it. Johnny Depp, I mean, he does those parts so well. And Tim Burton's an amazing director, so just saying.
fact versus fiction, struggling with the unsolved.
There's no sense of closure. Not for the families of the victims, and not for the public. Because we'll just never know.
That final chapter still waiting to be written. But even though investigators could never claim to have caught the killer, Dr. Badal says his years of research brought him to a single conclusion.
Who do I think did it? It was Dr. Francis Edward Sweeney, a skilled surgeon who fell into alcoholism and drug addiction, lapsed into paranoid schizophrenia.
A city ripped in fear, a dozen faceless victims,
I'm 99% sure we pegged it.
and the belief that this face, this man, is Cleveland's torso killer.
Francis Edward Sweeney. Nothing points away from him.
So who was Dr. Francis Edward Sweeney? And if he really was the torso murderer, how is it possible he was never caught? I could spend hours telling you about those theories, but there are enough theories floating around to fill so many more books. So for now, we'll leave it at this. According to Dr. Badal, Sweeney was the secret suspect interrogated by Elliot Ness in 1938. Ness had all the clues pointing to Sweeney, but not enough to take to court. Sweeney died in a veterans hospital in 1964, never charged with a crime. Homa Bash, News 5.
Now tell me that's not wild, you guys. And that was why. Hold on a minute. So that was the guy that Elliot Ness had at the hotel that he was keeping there and questioning. Hold on a minute here. What's going on? 1 second, guys. Okay. Hold on here. I'm trying to find this other piece. One moment. Come on, work with me here, please. Okay. Everything good, you guys? Everybody hear me and see me okay? Sorry. Just some of these things. I don't know what's going on today with this crap. Okay. Sorry. That whole thing earlier threw me completely off. All right, where are we at here? Okay, just making sure we're good. I had to reroute everything because of what happened earlier, so still working. Excuse me. One moment. Okay. Just so you guys. Now the other part, like I said, that I had read through. Gotcha, Cap. Gotcha. No, you're right about that. You're right. Okay, so where do we go? Just to give you a little bit of some of the victimology on this was Edward Anthony Adrassi was 29. It was discovered on the 23rd of 1935 in a gully at the base of Jackass Hill, where East 49th Street dead ends into Kingsbury Run. Andrassi's head was discovered buried near the rest of his body, which was found to be emasculated and only wearing socks. The autopsy report stated that Andrassi was decapitated in the mid-cervical region, which is just kind of like right here, with the fracture of the mid-cervical vertebrae. The coroner also noted that he had rope burns around his wrists. The cause of death was decapitation, of course, and hemorrhage and shock. He had been dead for 2 to 3 days. At one time, Andrassi had been an orderly in the psychiatric ward at Cleveland City Hospital. However, at the time of his death, he was unemployed and had no visible means of financial support. Another one of them, one of the John Does was another white male located in the weeds at the foot of East 49th Street and Praha Avenue next to Andrassi. Andrassi, I can never say it right. Anyway, Andrassi, sorry. Evidence suggested that the unidentified victim's body was saturated with oil set on fire after death, causing the skin to become reddish and leathery. They thought there was a chemical initially, and it wasn't. It was lit on fire, and then it went out. It also appeared as though the victim's body hair had been either shaved or burned off, and the unidentified male became known as John Doe number 1. That's one of the ones buried in Potter's Field there. Excuse me. Miss Florence Genevieve Polillo was 44 when she was discovered at 2315 to 2325 East 20th Street in Cleveland. Florence was dismembered and had been wrapped with paper and packaged into half-bushel baskets. Okay. But her head was never discovered, and the autopsy report stated that her cause of death was a slit throat. Due to the lack of the head, the coroner could not definitively rule her death a homicide. How else would it have happened? That's crazy to me. John Doe number 2 was who they called the tattooed man. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. Some of this might be a little bit triggering. Appreciate that, Alicia. John Doe number 2 was who they called the tattooed man. He was located on June 5th of 1936 between the New York Central and Nickel Plate Road tracks next to an old freight shed in front of the Nickel Plate Road police building. Excuse me. His head was found near the Shaker Heights rapid transit tracks. Sorry. The victim's body was nude but unmutilated and found only 1,500 feet away from the head. There was no blood on the ground, indicating that he had been killed somewhere else. A railroad worker testified that the head was not in the vicinity at 3 p.m. that day, and a witness described seeing a late model Cadillac close to the crime scene at about 11 p.m. that same night. The physical evidence of the decapitation suggested it had been done while the victim was still alive, which is insane to me. And the autopsy report stated that the body was drained of blood. The head had been cut off between the first and second cervical vertebrae, and there was no evidence of drugs or alcohol in the victim's body. Nothing to suggest that he had been tortured or bound before being killed. And John Doe number 2 had 6 tattoos, hence the nickname, the Tattooed Man. Yeah, Meanie, agreed. Again, thank you for the trigger warning, Alicia. Like I said, some of this stuff I get so used to it that some people, I forget, others could be triggered by it. All right, next, John Doe number 3. On the 22nd of 36, the severely decomposed, decapitated body remains of a white male were located near a homeless camp in the Big Creek area of Brooklyn, west of Cleveland. This was the only known West Side victim of the torso murderer. Police conducted a thorough search of the area and found the man's head, which was a skull by that point. Cheaply made, blood-stained clothing was found nearby. A pathologist discovered a large quantity of dried blood that had seeped into the ground beneath the man's body, indicating that he was actually killed at that location. For the first time, the murderer had ventured away from Kingsbury Run, and instead of transporting the victim, he had killed him in the place that he was discovered. The victim's long hair, poor clothing, and location near a homeless camp suggested he was one of the many vagrants who rode in and out of Cleveland on nearby railroad tracks. However, the advanced state of decay of the body made it impossible to get any fingerprints, and the head would have been decomposed and unrecognizable by that point. Searches through missing persons reports were unsuccessful, and the unidentified male became known as John Doe number 3. Hopefully it's acceptable with me reading it and going over it that way with you guys. I apologize about the video stuff. So you're welcome, Meanie. Thank you so much for being here and understanding all of the issues we've had today. John Doe number 4 was a homeless person discovered 2 halves of a male torso and lower legs floating in a stagnant pool near East 37th Street. While waiting for an eastbound freight train, the torso was removed and sent to the morgue, where the coroner noted the body had been severed between the third and fourth cervical vertebrae, as well as between the third and fourth lumbar. A search was made for the rest of the body. Police found a dirty felt hat labeled Lottie's Smart Shop from Bellevue, Ohio, which appeared to have blood spots on the top. A blue work shirt covered with blood was found wrapped in newspaper along the bank of the creek where the body was found. A fire crew dredged the water in the creek in an attempt to locate more parts of the body. The head was never found, nor the body was identified. The victim's kidneys and stomach were removed, as were his genitals. The coroner declared the probable cause of death as decapitation once again, and the unidentified male became known as John Doe number 4. Now, sorry guys, I got something stuck in my throat today. On February 23rd of 37, the upper portion of an unidentified female victim was found washed up on Euclid Beach on 156th Street. And now this would be who is considered to be Jane Doe number 1, the first female, okay, that's unidentified. The legs, arms, and head were never found, likely because they were less buoyant and the torso than the torso would be, and they possibly sank to the bottom of the lake. 3 months later, the lower half of the torso washed ashore at East through 30th Street. Sorry, the upper extremities were disarticulated at the level of the glenoid fossa, better known as the socket of the shoulder joint. The neck and head were also disarticulated between the 7th cervical and 1st thoracic vertebrae. Multiple hesitation knife marks at the surface of the skin were present. There was considerable water and gravel found in both pleural cavities. Now, what that means by multiple hesitation knife marks, it looks like he may have started and decided that's not a good way to do it and stopped, and then started again and then stopped and went like multiple times to try to get it just the way he wanted it to be. Very sick shit, folks. Very, very weird. And being Dr. Sweeney, which is such a wild name to have considering the situation, it's wild. It's wild because being a doctor would make perfect sense. Okay, by the way that some of the disarticulation and some of the decapitations were done, it kind of could be seen as somebody that knows what they're doing would be the one to do this, which would be obviously a doctor. Sorry. So, like I said, the hesitation marks is creepy to me because it's like he's going to start and then go, okay, no, I want this to be perfect. You know what I mean? Multiple times. Yeah, this is not just a hack job. This was somebody that, in my opinion, really knew what he was doing. Really, because of his precision. And one, maybe a perfectionist, a surgeon. You know what I'm saying? It kind of does say it itself, in my opinion. So that's why Francis Sweeney kind of fits this. And I think Elliot Ness was very good at what he did. And I think he knew, but there was no way to prove this. And the guy that did it knew what he was doing. And we didn't have things back then like we do now. So it wasn't as easy to prove shit, you know? So, and they were present. There was considerable water and gravel found in both pleural cavities. Like I said, the probable cause of death was officially undetermined via the coroner's case file. That identified female became known as Jane Doe number 1. That was the first unidentified female. Excuse me. The 8th victim was located beneath the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge, which I know exactly where that's at, on June 6th of 1937, lying in a rotting burlap bag, along with a newspaper from June of 1936, was the partial skeleton of a woman who had been dead approximately for 1 year. The body was decapitated and missing a rib. She was tentatively identified as 40-year-old prostitute Rose Wallace, who had vanished from the same bar Palillo had, which was one of the previous victims. Sorry. But this could not be confirmed. Wallace was known to have disappeared 10 months earlier on August 21st of 1936. While it was estimated that the victim had been dead for 1 year when found, officially the victim remains unidentified and is known as Jane 2. Excuse me. On July 6th of 1937, the upper portion of a man's torso wrapped in a burlap sack for chicken feed, plus his 2 thighs, again, trigger warning, guys, just in case. His chicken, Jesus, I put those 2 words together. That's not good. Plus his 2 thighs were discovered floating in the Cuyahoga River in the Cleveland Flats area. Just for people that aren't familiar, in Cleveland, the Flats is an area that like had all of the bars, and it was like the hot spot to go in Cleveland was the Flats. Okay. So it was a busy area. And when I would go to Cleveland back in the day, that's where we went, was the Flats. There was multiple bars. Everything was within walking distance, and we would just bar to bar to bar. So this is why this makes some sense. Kind of like with the Lady Bird Lake situation. That area that this happens is the same type area as what Cleveland Flats are. Sorry, that's great. Trigger warning, yes. Alicia dropped it in here a few times. There we go. I'll just leave that up for right now. Okay, so it wasn't strange for things to happen. Even up to date, the Flats are not what they used to be. They're not really there anymore. They've moved things more downtown and stuff like that because there was a lot of stuff. Hey, Cap, good to see you, bud. Where are we at here? Yes, Elizabeth, very much so. I just missed the video with the echo. Are we good, you guys? Everything okay? Can you guys hear me okay? Everything's good? Oh yeah, big time. It was always a good time. In fact, 2 of my bands played down there a few times way back in the day. Great crowds, good time. But anyway, sorry, you don't want to know about me. So his two thighs were discovered floating in the Cuyahoga River in the Cleveland Flats, just below Kingsbury Run. The head, as well as internal organs within the abdominal cavity and the heart, were never found. The unidentified male became known as Jane Doe 5, or John Doe 5. Sorry. Jane Doe number 3 was found April 8th of 1938. A woman's leg was located in the Cuyahoga River in the Cleveland Flats. Once again, a month later, on May 2nd, 2 burlap bags containing a woman's nude bisected torso, thighs, and feet were discovered floating in the river to the east of the West 3rd Street Bridge. Her head and arms were never found. She was the only victim to have morphine in her system, estimated at 0.002 grams per 100 grams sample. The unidentified female became known as Jane Doe number 3. And again, back then, to be able to get a hold of stuff like that, you had to be somebody. So he probably presented himself as a doctor to be able to receive something like that, in my opinion. Jane Doe 4 and 5. I'm not very good with Roman numerals. I might have that screwed up. On August 16th of 1938, a dismembered body was found at, Jane Doe and John Doe, my apologies, found at a dump on the East 9th Street in Cleveland, Ohio, by men combing for pieces of scrap metal. The body of a woman was wrapped in rags, brown paper, and cardboard. Uncharacteristically, the head and hands were found with the rest of the body. The victim's head had been disarticulated at the level of the third vertebral disc. Sorry, couldn't see for a second. The unidentified female became known as Jane Doe. I think that's 5, guys. Or 4. I always get those screwed up. Anyway, on the same day, the body of John Doe 5, I'm having a bad day today, was discovered at a nearby location on the Cleveland lakefront in plain view of Safety Director Elliot Ness's office at City Hall. And I always wondered if that one was put there purposely to taunt him, okay, because of his involvement in this. Similar to the other victims, the head was severed from the body and the victim remains unidentified. The head was disarticulated at the level of the third intervertebral disc and had knife marks on the dorsum of the second and third vertebra. Extremities at all the major joints were all disarticulated as well, and the coroner ruled the cause of death as undetermined, though he noted it was probably a homicide. Obviously, people aren't going to do this to themselves. Oh yeah, SRB, I can agree with you on that too. Now, possible victims, they're stating that the Lady of the Lake, the lower half, which was the first one that came out, okay? Lady of the Lake, the lower half of a woman's torso, thighs still attached but amputated at the knees, washed up on the shores of Lake Erie, just east of Bradenall on September 5th of 1934. A subsequent search yielded only a few other body parts. The head was never found. She was nicknamed the Lady of the Lake. She had an abdominal scar from a likely hysterectomy, which was common and made it more difficult to identify her. After she was found, several people reported seeing body parts in the water, including a group of fishermen who believed to have seen a head. The Lady of the Lake was found virtually in the same exact spot as Jane Doe 1. Both victims had on their skin a chemical which was believed to have been lime chloride. It is supposed that the killer meant to use a quickening lime to decompose the bodies quicker, but mistakenly used lime that would preserve their bodies instead. On July 22nd of 1950, Robert Robertson, who aged 41, was discovered at 2138 Davenport Avenue in Cleveland. Police believed that he had been dead 6 to 8 weeks and appeared to have been intentionally decapitated, fitting the profile of other victims. Robertson was, estranged from his family and had an arrest record and was an alcoholic on the fringes of society. Despite widespread newspaper coverage linking his death to the Torso murders, a detective treated it as an isolated crime, and they separated this from the rest of these, which was weird to me. The time frame is definitely interesting. Yes, if you go back to the beginning to the very last. They also believed that between 1921 and 1942, that 9 people, 8 of them unidentified, were found dead and dismembered in swamps or around train yards near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Could have been possibly related to the Torso Killers case. They called these murder swamp killings, which is something else I was going to cover one day. And it's been theorized to be additional victims of the Torso Killer. The almost identical similarities between the Pittsburgh victims to those in Cleveland, both of which were directly connected by a Baltimore and Ohio railroad line, were enough to convince Cleveland investigator Pete Merlo that the Pittsburgh murders were related. The headless body of an unidentified male was found in a boxcar in Newcastle, Pennsylvania on July 1st of 1936. 3 headless victims were found in boxcars near McKee's Rocks on May 3rd of 1940. All bore similar injuries to those inflicted by the Torso murderer. Dismembered bodies were also found in the swamps near Newcastle between 1921 and 1934, and between 1939 and 1942. I mean, this is pretty wild, guys, with this being possibly linked. Now, this is more over in Walt's neck of the woods here. But still fairly close. Like, I can get to Newcastle in about 15 minutes from where I'm at. So, he didn't go too far. Okay. If he did. Now, why he traveled, I wondered this. If this is related, why did you go from where you were at here to over here and more towards Pennsylvania? Did he get a new job? Did he move? And I'm thinking that he may have moved. Okay. And because he moved, his area is no longer at his fingertips. And I'm guessing this gentleman lives somewhere down within this area near the flats in one of those apartments down there. Again, he lost everything. It was a doctor that was just, lost his medical license, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So quite wild, folks, quite wild. Now, where are we at here? Like I said before, they all bore similar injuries to the ones that were inflicted by the Torso murderer. Dismembered bodies were also found in the swamps near Newcastle between 1934 and between 1939 and 42. So it still was stretched out for a while. In December of 38, the Torso murderer allegedly sent a letter to Elliot Ness claiming that he had moved to California and killed a woman there and had buried the head in Los Angeles. In the letter, the killer referred to himself as a DC, Doctor of Chiropractic. An investigation uncovered animal bones. A decade later, this confession resulted in authorities considering the possibility that the Torso murderer had some connection to the Black Dahlia case. If you think about that, we covered that here a long time ago. The way Black Dahlia was murdered lines up with the MO on this one some ways, guys. Okay. Sorry. So, in which the bisected remains of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short were found in the unfinished Leimert Park housing development in Los Angeles on January 15th of 1947. Both Short and the Torso murder victims had been thoroughly cleaned after the death, and a butcher knife was believed to have been used in both cases. Short was not decapitated, as was a signature for the Cleveland victims. Furthermore, the murder took place in a near a decade after the letter was received. Aside from circumstantial evidence and sheer speculation, there is nothing connecting Elizabeth Short to the Torso murders, but it is something that was looked at because of the MO, like I said, and we don't know. It could have been, if that letter was true and he did move, he was moving regularly. Maybe he was moving so much because he was trying to stay away from getting caught. You know what I mean? But it is still interesting. Very interesting. So authorities interrogated around 9,100 people during the search to find the killer, the murderer. Sorry. There were only 2 main suspects, and that was Frank Dolezal and Francis Sweeney. Francis Sweeney is the one that I believe it was. On August 24th of 39, a 52-year-old Cleveland resident named Frank Dolezal, who at one point lived with Palillo, one of the victims, and also had connections to Andrassi and Wallace, was arrested as a suspect in Palillo's murder. He later died under suspicious circumstances in the Cuyahoga County Jail while in custody of Sheriff Martin O'Donnell. Dolezal was later posthumously exonerated of involvement in the Torso slayings. And now that was back then that he was suspect, obviously. Now, this next one is the one that I really feel like this is the answer to this. All right. So the other lead suspect, Dr. Francis Edward Frank Sweeney, born May 5th of 1894 and died July 9th of 1964, was a veteran of World War I who was part of the medical unit that conducted amputations in the field and at one point suffered nerve damage from a gas attack. After heavy drinking began in 1929, after the war, Sweeney became an alcoholic due to pathological anxiety and depression derived from his wartime experiences. His heavy drinking began in 1929. By 1934, his alcoholism led to a separation from his wife, and that's probably what triggered all this. Yeah, Cap, 100%. So, Sweeney was personally interviewed by Elliot Ness. Before the interrogation, Sweeney was found to be so intoxicated that he was held in a hotel room for 3 days until he sobered up. Under questioning, he said to have failed to pass 2 very early polygraph machine tests. Both tests were administered by polygraph expert Leonard Keeler, who told Ness that Sweeney was the culprit. Ness apparently felt there was little chance of obtaining a successful prosecution. However, especially as Sweeney was the first cousin of one of Ness's political opponents, Congressman Martin Sweeney, who had hounded Ness publicly about his failure to catch the killer. After Sweeney committed himself to an institution, there was no more leads or connections that police could assign to him as a possible suspect. From his confinement, Sweeney sent threatening postcards and harassed Ness and his family into the 1950s. The postcards only stopped arriving after his death. Sweeney died in a veterans hospital in Dayton, Ohio on July 9th of 1964. While Sweeney was considered a viable suspect, the evidence against him was purely circumstantial. We know what that's all about. In 1929, Sweeney was a surgical resident at the St. Alexis Hospital in the Kingsbury Run area. He also had an office on the same street where a man named Emil Fronick claimed a doctor had tried to drug him in 1934. Fronick's story was ultimately discounted as he could not relocate the building with police the following day. Upon finding a victim with drugs in her system and looking through buildings, it was found that Sweeney did have an office next to a corner. In the area where Fronick had suggested that he had been drugged, Sweeney would practice in the morgue, which would have been a clean and convenient location for him to kill his victims. In addition to Dolezal and Sweeney, authorities also considered Willie Johnson, an African-American male who committed a similar murder in 1942 in June. Johnson had been spotted by a young girl while disposing of a trunk, which was later found to contain the torso of 19-year-old Margaret Frances Wilson. Wilson's head and arms were found in nearby bushes, while her legs would be found at Johnson's home 2 weeks later. It was claimed that Johnson was acquainted with Wallace and possibly Palillo, but while coroner Samuel Gerber touted him as the suspect, he was never conclusively linked to the Torso murders. Johnson was tried and convicted of Wilson's murder, and after a lengthy psychological evaluation, executed by electric chair on March 10th of 1944. In 1997, another theory postulated that there may have been no single Torso murder, that the killings could have been committed by different people. This was based on the assumption that the autopsy results were inconclusive. Merlot believed that the torso murderer could have been a transient who was riding the rails, as most of the murders occurred near railroad tracks, and believed his way as why there were murders in other states and were similar to the killings in Cleveland. But Merlot went undercover as a hobo to investigate his idea. That's also the victim that was found at Morgan Run near East 55th Street, Cleveland, was estimated to be 20 to 33 years old, light complected, reddish brown hair, chestnut colored eyes, stood 5'10" or 11, tall, slender build, and weighed 165 pounds. He had 6 unusual tattoos on his body, which back in those days was weird to have tattoos like that, unless you were like in the Navy or something like that. Where did that go now? And this is why they're putting this out, or they put these out, because if anybody knew who this person was, maybe they could identify him by the tattoos. On the inner arm of his left forearm, a heart and an anchor in a red and blue on outer side of his right forearm. Sorry. A flag and his initials WCG on the inner side of his right forearm, a butterfly on his left shoulder, and the head of a comic character, Jigs, on his left ankle, and an image of Cupid on his right ankle. His undershorts bore a laundry mark indicating the owner's initials were JD, despite Morgan death mask expectations by thousands of Cleveland citizens. And in the summer of 1936 at Great Lakes Exposition, the victim, known as the Tattooed Man, was never ever identified. That's really kind of sad that any of these people were unidentified. He really does, in my opinion, SRBs. I think Sweeney is he's the one for this, in my opinion. I truly do think that. It just makes sense. The timeline matches, and the fact that, it seems like he probably did move around. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was responsible possibly for Black Dahlia. I really wouldn't. I really, really wouldn't. None of this would surprise me. And like I said, it's crazy that his last name is Sweeney too, Me too, Alicia. That's the thing, is that it was put out back then to try to help identify him by the tattoos. But if he was a single guy and had no family, you're going to struggle with that, obviously. It could be Cap, yeah. But with what he did, it makes sense to look at him in that sense because of where his placement was, as far as where he lived, where he worked at, where they found the bodies per se, so on and so forth. It just kind of matches up. And again, Elliot Ness really truly believed that this was the guy, period. So just saying. Does anybody have any questions about this case? Like I said, this is well over 90 years old at this point, and now they're finally getting like Othram involved with the DNA to try to exhume the bodies and do some DNA testing to see if they can come up with anything as to who the unidentified people were. And if they can, if they find any kind of a relationship between him possibly and these people, that can make it match as to where he would be possibly the killer. Yeah, Dahlia was in 1947, correct. Hold on here. 1 second. Yeah, it was January 15th of 47. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So he really does seem like, cut and dry, in my opinion, the most possible person. So like I said, anybody, any questions with this one at all, or anything? Let me see something here. 1 minute. Let's see. This is Dr. Sweeney right here. Francis Sweeney. This is without glasses. This is with his glasses. This is as he aged. And the guy lived for quite a while. Like I said, he didn't die till 1964. So through all of this, you know, it's pretty wild. It is really wild. That's a better picture when he was younger. And I'm sure he was doing this, stopped doing this as he got to a certain age, in my opinion. So it would be wild if he was related to the Dahlia case. And they've been exhuming the bodies, trying to find the bodies in that field first because they're not 100% sure. They were never grave marked, which is crazy, because they didn't know who they were. So they just figured they would just bury them like that, not thinking that, 90 years later that we would have the ability to identify this based on DNA stuff. So I don't know, guys. It's wild. It is definitely wild. Oh, I can agree with that one, Cap. Definitely. They definitely should exhume Kennedy and rerun some testing on him for sure. Sweeney has relatives out here that are still alive. And, if it were from the one article that I had read, it stated that his relatives, of course, know who he is, know that he was possibly the one that could have done this. And of course, they don't, want anything to do with that situation, but would love to see, as stated by Thomas Edward Sweeney, who I believe was his grandson. No, his nephew. Sorry, he's his nephew, his great nephew. That's what it was. Stated that they'd love to see justice for the families on this, even though they don't even know who they are per se. So just saying. Whoever took out the organs. Yeah. That's why I believe it was a doctor, and that why that Sweeney makes sense. What'd you do with the organs, though? What did he do? And I don't even know if I want to know, because who knows? Okay. Who knows? I think, hold on here. Yes, this was him when he died in 64, I think. Or no, hold on. No, they don't have that one. They don't have his obituary photograph. Okay, no problem. I was just trying to see if they had it, but that would be another person altogether different there for that one. Okay, good. No questions, no nothing on this one, guys. Like I said, I'm really sorry for all the delays and all the bullshit today. I feel so bad. I promise you that we won't have to go through that tomorrow or the next time we do this. So, and with the timeline the time that we ran with the first one, the first video to this time, we're about right at the right time. So, well, I'm glad you thought so, Elisa. I thought it was, and I still think it is. I'm very interested to see what happens with these exhumations and if they can make some kind of a DNA, cross with this. Sweeney gives off the professor and the madman. Oh, yeah. Good point, Eddie. Very good point. True account of Civil War surgeon, W.C. Minor, who killed a man in England and was in situation. Interesting. Dr. W.C. Minor. Thank you, Eddie. I'll have to look into that. So, like I said, once again, I want to make apologies for you guys to you guys for the crap today. This was crazy, and I'm so sorry. I feel stupid. And we will not have to go through that again. I hope to God. Like I said, everything I do, I filter it to try to make sure it works right. And I'd rather enjoyed reading the rest of it to you myself, to be honest with you. So I hope you guys enjoyed that there. It is an interesting case, and I hope that something can come from this just to give justice in the name of justice, if anything. Some of maybe the family members can say, hey, this was finally solved. It would be great, in my opinion. So thank you guys for coming today. I appreciate it very much. I may be back here this afternoon, depending on my honeydew list, of course. Don't forget, guys, to love yourselves and love each other, and don't change a thing. You guys are amazing. You guys make this happen. You are the beautiful people. I appreciate you very much. Eddie said the book is called The Professor and the Madman. It may look for good true crimes. Professor and Madman. Okay. You know, I love to read, so that may be something I need to look up and read. And the Madman. Thank you, Eddie. All right, guys. Thank you so much once again. God bless. Thank you for anybody that donated anything to support the channel. You guys are amazing. I really, really appreciate it. It's never, ever expected, folks, but so very much appreciated. It keeps us going. You have a great day, and maybe I will see you guys later. Thanks again. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.